Once again, Real Madrid are looking to cherry-pick one of Tottenham Hotspur's biggest stars. Meanwhile, two of the players on Spurs' wanted-to-buy list have been made available for transfer, and Bayern Munich looking to go to Liverpool and take one of their England internationals. All this and more on today's Premier League transfer news. Guys, thank you so much for watching. Please do give the video a like. Press subscribe if you haven't already. I'm making daily transfer news videos for you guys, always starting with my beloved Spurs, but also going more wide range across the Premier League and into Europe. And I'll be keeping you up to date with all of the managerial news too. So do press subscribe if you haven't already. And also, if you want to become a member, it's only £1 a month. Really helps support me to make this content for you. And all the details are in the description box below. But let's get started. And Christian Romero. No wonder I sound like I'm a little bit down today. It feels like the wheels are starting to turn as ever. With the Real Madrid machine, they start leaking to the press far in advance of when they're planning to take their favoured players. And according to ESPN Football in Argentina, they want Christian Romero, and they're already sounding out Tottenham as to how much money it would potentially take. Rumours are that Tottenham have a value on Romero of £80 million, but that they actually wouldn't accept any bids unless they were upwards of £90 to £100 million. Now, I know any of you who are watching who are maybe not Spurs fans would think that that is absolutely ridiculous money for a centre-back, but we are talking about a World Cup winner, and I've been saying this pretty much all year actually, since Romero has had his best season at Spurs. He was made vice-captain, and he's really kind of calmed himself down. I really think that both him and Mickey van der Ven are potentially future, Real Madrid or Barcelona players. The difference being, of course, Barcelona have severe financial worries. I admit that Real Madrid's interest in Romero has come a little bit earlier than I thought. Do I think this is a deal that will happen this summer? I would be incredibly surprised. I think it's far more likely, as with Luka Modric, as with Gareth Bale, that they're really kind of just leaking and putting sounders out to get in the ear of the player and make Tottenham Hotspur and Real Madrid fans know that they are interested in taking him. But it's already been talked about in the press that Real Madrid see Daniel Levy as the toughest negotiator in football. And there's absolutely no doubt that the only way that Christian Romero would leave the club, even for someone like Real Madrid, is if Levy got exactly what he wanted and needed. Now, I want to ask any of you Spurs fans watching, there has been some clamour over recent years, some discussion, some discourse as to the inability of Tottenham to make decisions where they sell their players at their highest value. This is over the last kind of 10 years rather than before that. Their ability to sell their players when they have huge value to then reinvest in the squad. Let me know in the comments how you feel about Christian Romero. Is this potentially an opportunity, if we could get upwards of £80 million for him, to sell him at his highest value and then reinvest? Or is it as simple as we cannot afford to lose him? To give you my opinion, I think, what is he, 25, 26? He's come out in the press this season already and talked a lot about how, there's been interested in him before, but he's determined to play some of his best stuff at Spurs and try and lead us to trophies and glory. So I don't think Christian Romero is going to kind of throw his toys out of the pram and force a move. But I do think potentially, if we don't have a great season this year and win something, or certainly get back into the Champions League, then these rumours will just get bigger and bigger and bigger. And I think Real Madrid know that. And I'm sure that realistically, Christian Romero's representatives and his agent will have already talked to the people at Real Madrid and kind of given them his opinion on when potentially he would be willing to move. I think when you've won the World Cup, really, then you probably are on a bit of a motivated push to try and win everything in club football as quickly as possible to try and get the whole set. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think about this rumour. Moving on to some other Tottenham Hotspur rumours today. Again, the Crystal Palace Eberechi Eze move rumours won't go away, but apparently Manchester United now, of course, kind of sorted with Erik ten Hag. They've got their managerial situation sorted. Apparently they are really in for Eze as well as Tottenham Hotspur. However, and I might talk about this a little bit more when we get into the managerial side of things, a lot of talk coming out of Old Trafford that since Jim Radcliffe came in, he's put a really strong wage structure in place, and and they don't have a great deal of money to spend, but I will talk more about that when I get into the managerial section of today's show. Meanwhile, the Ederson defensive midfielder from Atalanta rumours still doing the rounds. More news on that yesterday. He has come out and spoken when asked about his links with Liverpool, who are in for him with Tottenham Hotspur. He said, "I'm happy at Atalanta. My focus is on Brazil now," because he's away with Brazil for the Copa America. He says, "I like Italy, but I'm also curious about the Premier League. The only possibility to leave is if Atalanta receive a proposal, and then they decide it's up to Atalanta." So, seems like there could be a little bit of a bidding war on for Ederson. He is a great player. I know a lot of you guys in my comments have said you'd love to see him at the club. I really like the look of him too, especially assuming that Pierre-Emile Højbjerg is going to leave. So, we do need someone to battle with Yves Bissouma for that number 6 role. Also, again, I'm kind of assuming that Ollie Skip will probably go out at the very least on loan. However, with Liverpool in for him as well, and obviously Liverpool in the Champions League, that would be a tight battle for us. But don't forget, last summer, we were in with Newcastle for James Maddison. They were in the Champions League. They could offer more wages. And Maddison just liked what Big Ange had to offer when he spoke to him on the phone. So let's not rule anything out. But yeah, be an interesting one to see where Ederson ends up at the end of this transfer window. More Conor Gallagher news, kind of some contradictory news. Tom Allnutt says that Spurs are expected to push to do a deal for Conor Gallagher this month. Ange Postecoglou also wants key signings up front and in defence this summer. That's Tom Allnutt, very good journalist. Make sure you check him out if you haven't already. Meanwhile, though, Jacob Steenberg has said that Chelsea are considering a shift in their position over Conor Gallagher and are potentially going to make a concerted effort to agree a new contract with him. So, who do you believe? Journalists getting different bits of insight. I would hazard a guess that maybe one of those bits of insight is coming from the player's agent side and one is coming from Chelsea's side. But what we do know about Chelsea is they are unwilling to pay as much money in wages to their academy players as they are to the foreign players that they bring in and sign up to long 8-year contracts like your Mudryks, like your Maduekis, etc., etc. So, will Conor Gallagher follow Mason Mount out of the door, because Mason Mount left last summer to go to Old Trafford and is on huge wages there. It'll be interesting to see. I know Conor Gallagher is a kind of divisive player when it comes to Spurs being interested in him, but I think if Big Ange wants him, I can totally see why. An elite presser, he takes the ball in hard positions, good in tight spaces, and I really think his running ability, alongside that of Rodrigo Bentancur and some of the other options we'll have, maybe even Lucas Bergvall, depending on how he does when he comes to the squad, could be really exciting in terms of shoring up our midfield and protecting our defence a little bit better than we did last season. But let me know in the comments what you think. The Lille president has come out yesterday and said that both Lenny Yoro and Jonathan David can leave the club. Now, that's relevant because both of those players have been discussed as being on Johan Lange's Tottenham wanted to buy list. The chairman says that both have the exit voucher, as in they're available to move this summer because of their contract situations, as in he doesn't want them to let their contracts run down and them leave on a free. So what do you think? Lots of talk in my comments about both those players over the last few months, both incredibly talented. Jonathan David, obviously more of a striker. Do you want to see them come in? Let me know what you think. I'm sure you saw yesterday that Tanguy Ndombele has now officially left Tottenham Hotspur. He is a free agent. Spurs did a deal where they paid him off for the rest of his contract, rumoured to be about £5 million. Sounds a little bit low to me considering he's on £200,000 a week. I'm not really sure what's in it for him for it only to be £5 million, but take that with a pinch of salt. I doubt anyone really knows what the actual number is. But Spurs did put out a quote with that announcement, said the club can confirm the departure of Tanguy Ndombele following the mutual termination of his contract, effective from 30th of June. Upon the conclusion of his current loan spell. Obviously, he's been at Galatasaray where he's hardly ripped anything up. Spurs said, wishing you all the best for the future. Also, Tanguy Ndombele overnight posted on his Instagram account. He said, end of my adventure at the best club in London. I learnt a lot during my time at Tottenham. Thank you for the unwavering support of the supporters. I wish you all the best for the future and I know you will be extremely successful. Well, Tanguy, obviously another divisive figure since he joined the club, I think back in 2019. Undoubtedly the most talented footballer I've ever potentially seen play at Spurs in terms of on the ball, in central midfield, the ability to beat a man, drop a shoulder, play a nutmeg, get out of tight spaces, but also at pace to have the vision to play beautiful through balls. And also we'll never forget that incredible goal he scored away at Sheffield United, the lob. Other things I won't forget about Tanguy Ndombele, Jose Mourinho having to take him to the park during lockdown to make sure he kept fit. And also that Morecambe game where he walked off in an FA Cup game where we were losing to extreme lower league opposition, and he gave it the slow walk, and the entire fan base booed. So I'm not really sure why he said thank you for the unwavering support of the fans. That was certainly never the case. There are, of course, some Undon believers who thought it's our fault that we never got the best out of him, but from the way I look at it, from everything I see, he had one good season at Lyon. He'd been playing in, I think, the second division in France only a couple of seasons before. There's clearly an extreme attitude problem with him. And when he was offered £200,000 a week to come to Spurs to, replace Moussa Dembele in the heart of Maurizio Pochettino's midfield, he didn't have the motivation levels there to make it happen. And plenty of managers have given him a chance and tried, and he's continually let them down. And it's so unfortunate when you see a player of extreme ability and extreme talent not make the most of it. And look, maybe I'll be proven wrong. Let me know what you think in the comments. But I just don't think we'll ever see Tanguy Ndombele play at the next level, at the top level again, and certainly not to the standards that he can do. And it's very, very sad. Okay, on to some more transfer news. Bayern Munich have nipped in ahead of Spurs to sign Hiroki Ito. We were talking obviously earlier in the week in some of my videos about him being on Spurs' list, having a 30 million euro release clause at Stuttgart, and maybe potentially being the perfect kind of centre-back, left-back hybrid who could come in and be squad depth for the likes of Dragusin, Romero, Van der Ven and Destiny Udogie. But I think maybe Bayern Munich have learnt from what happened in January with Radu Dragusin, didn't want to get into a war of letting the player decide who he goes to, because Dragusin obviously chose Spurs in January ahead of Bayern Munich. So Bayern have just gone straight out, paid that 30 million euro release clause, and it looks very much like Hiroki Ito will be playing for Vincent Kompany at Bayern Munich next season. Guys, I'm sure a lot of you do, but if you don't, do listen to the Fighting Cock podcast with Flav Bateman. I listened to an episode yesterday where he interviewed Harry Redknapp, and it was an extremely brilliant episode. Do give it a listen. It's only about half an hour, but it's really, really excellent. And something really stuck out to me, which was that Harry Redknapp was asked by Flav what happened in terms of the end of his tenure at Tottenham Hotspur. And for the first time that I've heard in public, Harry Redknapp has said that he feels very strongly that it was actually Joe Lewis, the owner back then of Tottenham Hotspur, who wanted Harry Redknapp sacked rather than Daniel Levy. Harry said he has a great relationship with Daniel Levy. He said he never had any problems with Daniel Levy. I have to say that kind of surprised me as well, because whenever you hear Jamie Redknapp, Harry Redknapp's son, on Sky Sports as a pundit, and he's talking about Spurs, he has such resentment towards Daniel Levy, and it must all come from, I guess, his dad having to leave the club, but also I guess when Jamie Redknapp was a player at Spurs. There's a lot of resentment there, but it doesn't come from Harry, it comes from Jamie. And as I said, Harry Redknapp said that he definitely feels it was Joe Lewis who wanted him sacked rather than Daniel Levy. Now let's not forget, Harry Redknapp was very much in the plans to become the next England manager at the time, and also he just had a court case for fraud. And so maybe Joe Lewis looked on that as bad PR for the club, and maybe that's why he was thinking like that. But I think as a bigger picture thing about Daniel Levy and ENIC, in terms of that bit of news, I wonder how much down the years, Daniel Levy, who is obviously the face of the club, he's the chairman, and Joe Lewis never ever gives interviews, and now he's actually, at least legally, put the club in the hands of a trust rather than him being the official owner. I wonder how many decisions down the years that Joe Lewis has kind of almost forced Daniel Levy to make, and Daniel Levy has had to be the face of it. And therefore, and I'm not saying the fans are wrong in any way to kind of vent their ire at Daniel Levy when things go wrong, but maybe it's just not as simple as him being the bad guy that we all, or a lot of you, assume that he is. And maybe some of the time it's actually has been Joe Lewis who has made those decisions, and Daniel Levy just has to pull the trigger himself and bite the bullet for it, really. And maybe that goes as much into, the players that we are or aren't allowed to buy. Because in that excellent episode of The Fighting Cock, Flav also asked Harry Redknapp about, for instance, Eden Hazard and Luis Suarez, players that Harry wanted in that kind of January window where we ended up with Louis Saha and Ryan Nelson. And Harry is he's very open about it. He said, I met with Eden Hazard. Eden Hazard wanted to come to the club, but in the end, it wasn't a deal that the club wanted to do. And maybe that's an example. Maybe it was a number where Joe Lewis was like, I don't think we should be spending that money. And Daniel Levy had to take the cop for it. Just a thought. Let me know what you think about that in the comments. Some more news coming out from Son Heung-min. He's done an interview where he was asked about his Spurs future. And he says the following. He said, talking about his future at Tottenham makes him feel uncomfortable. I've not had any exchanges with the club. I don't have anything to say at this point. I feel a little uncomfortable with the situation. I'm going to keep doing my best for Tottenham. I still have terms left on my contract. Money is not important to me. The most important thing is to play in a league that I enjoy playing in. I have so much more I want to accomplish in the Premier League. I mean, what a guy Sonny is. Our captain. And I've said it before, I'll say it again. The absolute dream would be to see him lifting a trophy for Spurs. Middlesbrough are apparently holding talks with Spurs to sign our 19-year-old striker Will Lancashire, who had a brilliant season in Premier League 2 last year. He was signed by us for our academy for £2 million. There is also some interest from clubs in Europe, apparently. A long line of clubs from the Championship and across Europe looking to take Lancashire on loan next season, including Middlesbrough, according to Alistair Gold. Apparently Tottenham have no intention of selling him, but they would like to see him get a loan deal next season. That makes absolute perfect sense for me. Ideally, a Championship club in the kind of middle reaches to the upper reaches, and see how he can do it in the kind of bonkers world of the Championship. If you can score goals there, then you will get a chance. I'm sure of that. Okay, moving on to some other transfer news. Man United and Erik ten Hag closely monitoring Matthijs de Ligt from Bayern Munich. He is allowed to leave this summer as long as they get a suitable offer. That's a bit of a contradictory one for me, because all the talk coming out of Man United is that they actually don't want to buy kind of Galacticos anymore, players on huge wages. They want to go young and hungry. So I'm not sure if de Ligt quite counts as that. He's still youngish. I think he's still under 25. He's done a lot in the game, and obviously he's played at Bayern Munich, and he will be on big wages. Also, United have asked apparently what the terms would be to sign Hoffenheim striker Maximilian Bayer. They've been told he has a £27 million release clause. That's according to Bild. Liverpool new Bayern Munich head coach Vincent Kompany is also interested in Joe Gomez from Liverpool. He's obviously off at the Euros with England at the moment. Be interesting to see whether Arne Slot rates Joe Gomez. I have to say, let me know if you agree. I've never seen enough from Joe Gomez to think he is a quality England player, and also he gets injured so much, so I'm not really sure. I'm not really sure how much Slot will like him. He's played a lot of kind of squad minutes for Jurgen Klopp, but will he improve if he gets a move to Bayern Munich? Man City have signed Savio from Troyes, one of their sister clubs. What a surprise. AC Milan apparently in talks to sign Matty Cash from Aston Villa. As a Spurs fan, I wouldn't be afraid to see him leave for Serie A, because he tends to injure a lot of our players with bad tackles. £20 million is what Villa want for Matty Cash. Newcastle apparently submitted an offer of €20 million, including bonuses to Barcelona for Ferran Torres, Spanish international. Obviously, Barcelona need to get money off their wage bill, and Torres hasn't been a regular recently. West Ham are among the clubs showing concrete interest in Matthias Soulé, the Argentina winger from Juventus. Apparently he's available for transfer, and West Ham, as I've spoken about quite a lot this summer already, going for a lot of South American flair players. Fabrizio Romano says they could be interested in getting Soulé out of Juventus. Al Nassr in Saudi Arabia presented a huge offer for Antonio Rudiger, €100 million for 4 years to get him out of Real Madrid. I think he'd be bonkers to leave. On to the managerial news, and this is what I was alluding to earlier. All the talk now that Man United have signed up Erik ten Hag and are going to get him on another couple of years contract. Apparently, some leaks coming out of some of the managers that Man United interviewed was that some of the candidates were left astounded by the low wages on offer and unimpressed by the club's transfer budget. So this kind of scans with everything that's coming out, saying that Jim Ratcliffe and Ineos are trying to keep things incredibly tight at Manchester United, get a wage cap going and keeping the bills down. And apparently one of the reasons they didn't sack Ten Hag is they didn't want to pay him compensation, and they did not want to pay compensation for a manager they'd have to get in. So Man United really kind of ripping up their rulebook and going for something different. Let me know what you think about that. Will it help or hinder Man United? One of the managers apparently they held talks with was Thomas Frank, and apparently they had that meeting while Ten Hag was travelling to the FA Cup final. Also scanning on this bit of news is that Newcastle have rejected a £3 million offer from Manchester United for their sporting director Dan Ashworth. That's very much a lowball offer and in keeping with what we're hearing. And that Dan Ashworth story. Of course, he's on gardening leave at Newcastle because he wants to go to Man United. That one just runs and runs. England's game going on to the Euros now against Serbia on Sunday will be the only game in the entirety of Euro 2024 where only low percentage alcohol beer will be served in an attempt to prevent fan trouble. I wonder how Gareth Southgate feels about that. Won't you want England fans to be as boisterous as possible? Who knows? Roberto De Zerbi, who was obviously in for that Man United job, he is now heavy favourite to be announced as the Marseille manager. Apparently negotiations advancing there. And some news this morning, I'm filming this in the afternoon on Thursday, but some news in this morning that Edin Terzic has left Borussia Dortmund, and he released this quote: "Dear Borussians, even though it pains me greatly right now, I want to inform you that as of today I will be leaving Borussia Dortmund. It was a tremendous honour to leave this great club to a cup victory and recently to a Champions League final. After that final at Wembley, I asked the management for a conversation because after 10 years at Borussia, including 5 years in the coaching team and 2.5 years as head coach, I feel that the upcoming restart should be led by a new person." One of the reasons I find that interesting is because the managerial merry-go-round, the opportunities for managers to take jobs this summer is wild. And some of those are now getting taken up, and Terzic was being talked about potentially as Man United, an option for Man United, and obviously that's now gone. So clearly he feels a rest. Be interesting to see if he comes back to the Premier League. He was, I believe, if I'm right, let me know if I'm wrong, I think he was on West Ham's coaching team at one point under Slaven Bilic as an assistant manager. And finally, and relevant to Spurs, one of our possibilities as manager, one of the ones Fabio Paratici liked, Paulo Fonseca, he has been announced as AC Milan's new head coach. All documents have been signed, and he will be on a €2.5 million salary. He's a very attacking coach. Be interesting to see what he does at AC Milan. Guys, thank you so much for watching and listening to today's daily transfer news from the Premier League and beyond. Please do press like if you haven't already. Do press that subscribe button and become a member. Only £1 a month really helps me to make this daily content. Have a great rest of your day. Nearly the weekend. Cheers. Bye.